on December 1st, 2023 at 1:02 p.m. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chair Scripps.
Present.
Commissioner Paratek. Present. Commissioner Carrion. Present. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Today's meeting is being held in person at the Commission's office at 7109 West Saginaw Highway in Lansing, Michigan. I see that we are getting close to capacity in the room here. We do have overflow room in the Superior Room, which is just out the doors and down the hall also on this floor. We are also hosting this meeting remotely using Microsoft Teams. It is compatible with all browsers except Safari. Telephone relay service is available through the phone option. We will have an opportunity for the public to make comments as provided in the agenda. A few notes about this. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and one per person. Given the number of individuals attending here today, we are prepared to stay a bit beyond our stated meeting end time of 2 o'clock, but we do have a hard stop at 2:30, and we'll try and take as many comments as possible in that time. The first order of business is approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I move for the approval of the agenda for today's Commission meeting. I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve today's agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The agenda is approved. And today the Commission is assisted by Staff Attorney Shannon Wambaugh. I recognize Ms. Wambaugh.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Today's consent agenda consists of 2 communications matters, 6 electric matters, and 2 gas matters. The proposed orders and minute actions for these matters have been thoroughly vetted by the Commission's technical and legal staff and are ready for your approval. Item 4A1 is case number U-21297, which involves an application filed by DTE Electric Company for authority to increase its rates for the sale and distribution of electric energy. Staff member Sarah Molkoff will describe this order.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Molkoff. I serve as a Commissioner Advisor in the Commission office. On February 10th, 2023, DTE Electric Company files an application transcript in hundreds of exhibits. And I thank Judge Feldman for preparing a thoughtful, thorough, and, despite its 876-page length, succinct proposal for decision, considering the numerous, complex questions and interacting matters intrinsic to the decision at hand. To carry out our charge at the Commission to serve the public by approving reasonable and prudent utility expenditures, it is imperative that record evidence sufficiently supports every investment that stands to increase rates. It is critically important that the company provide comprehensive information upfront and upon request in a timely way, justify its methodologies, and transparently explain its decision-making processes to ensure the Commission can fairly and without impediment evaluate reasonableness and prudence. Unsupported conclusions or incomplete analyses to back investments are unacceptable. Quantified data is crucial for evaluation. We request the company adhere to our forthcoming mandatory rate case filing requirements and to note carefully where within the order the Commission suggests the need for more quantitative supportive projects and where data was marked as altogether absent to help prepare clear and more transparent application filing in the future. Now, I'd like to turn to a couple of select highlights from this order that reflect the Commission's commitment to ensuring equitable outcomes for all, including our most vulnerable communities. And I have the privilege of serving alongside 2 fellow Commissioners who work tirelessly in upholding values of safety and equity for our state. First, to embed equitable resource allocation and decision-making for grid investments, we have requested the company work with MPSC staff and other organizations to develop a detailed regression analysis of customer demographics and reliability for vulnerable communities to be used in the company's distribution grid plan. Results from ongoing equity analyses from the company can demonstrate how the company balances its spending such that it does not disproportionately skew benefits away from more vulnerable or disadvantaged communities. These analyses to support equitable approaches to resourcing projects are important for key areas of electrification as well, such as in transitioning certain transportation electrification pilots to permanence. 2 pilots that are now approved for permanence include an education and outreach program that provides comprehensive information on transportation electrification, including ensuring this information reaches underserved communities, and a battery financing program which allows the company to purchase batteries for public transit, school buses, and delivery vans to alleviate the initial cost impacts of electric buses and enable repayment of the battery over time. The Commission notes that it's appropriate to focus on areas experiencing the worst forms of air pollution from public transportation, delivery vans, and school buses for electric bus deployments. The advent of transportation electrification at scale cannot be confined to personal or private vehicle use or ownership alone. To ensure equitable access to clean transportation, electrifying multiple mobility modes will be required. And finally, For any type of proceeding in which a company participates, the Commission continues to emphasize the need for external party input and ongoing collaboration in developing plans and filings, including distribution grid plans or transportation electrification plans. And this is doubly important when these plans are then filed to the record for contested cases like today's, as ongoing engagement and collaboration in developing plans that contain quantitative benefit cost analyses can both strengthen the case record as well as integrate procedural equity in future planning.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrion. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Similar to Commissioner Carrion, I'd first like to thank all the parties to this case who participated and provided testimony on the record for our review. It was a robust record, and I know the 10-month deadline for a decision in rate cases is not easy. I'd especially like to thank Judge Feldman for her excellent and thorough proposal for decision, our fantastic staff for their thorough analysis and positions, our advisors and attorneys for their diligent work, and countless hours spent to get us to the point of this final order today.
Case number U-20763, which involves an application by Enbridge Energy Limited Partnership pursuant to Act 16 of 1929, requesting approval of the Straits Line 5 replacement segment project. Staff member Travis Warner will describe this order.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and guests. My name is Travis Warner. I'm an engineer at the Commission. On April 17th, 2020, Enbridge Energy filed an application pursuant to Public Act 16 of 1929, requesting authority for the Straits Line 5 replacement segment. Line 5 is an existing 645-mile pipeline that originates in Superior, Wisconsin, traverses Michigan's upper and lower peninsulas, and terminates in Sarnia, Ontario. Line 5 was originally constructed in 1953 and transports light crude oil and natural gas liquids. The annual capacity is approximately 540,000 barrels per day. The section of Line 5 that crosses the Mackinac Straits consists of two 20-inch diameter pipes referred to as the dual pipelines. The majority of the dual pipelines lie on the lake bed in the Straits. In recent years, Enbridge and the state of Michigan entered into a series of agreements relating to the replacement of these pipelines. The replacement project proposed by Enbridge consists of construction of a single 30-inch diameter pipeline to be located within a concrete lined tunnel beneath the lake bed in the Straits. The pipeline is designed to meet all federal pipeline safety requirements and will be constructed with steel that is 0.625 inches thick. Before the pipeline is placed into operation, it will undergo testing at pressures greater than its maximum allowable operating pressure. Once the replacement pipeline is constructed and tied into the remainder of Line 5, the retired dual pipelines will be deactivated. The tunnel will be constructed at depths between 60 and 370 feet below the lake bed, primarily through rock. It will have a diameter of 21 feet and will be constructed using a tunnel boring machine with precast tunnel lining. In addition to the replacement pipeline, the tunnel is designed to allow space for electric and communications cables, ventilation systems, leak detectors, dewatering equipment, third-party utilities, and other equipment needed for inspections and maintenance. In 2018, the Michigan legislature enacted Public Act 359, which created the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority to oversee the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the proposed tunnel. The case to review the application has spanned multiple years and includes numerous motions and 6 interim orders addressing the scope of the evidence and the reopening of the record. The case included participation from 14 intervening parties. Throughout the case, Commission and staff took steps to allow ease of access to information in the case for members of the public. The Commission received more than 23,000 comments, and the record consists of more than 2,500 pages. In evaluating an application under Act 16, the Commission utilizes a 3-pronged test. 1, whether the applicant has demonstrated a public need for the proposed pipeline. 2, whether the proposed pipeline is designed and routed in a reasonable manner. And 3, whether the construction of the pipeline will meet or exceed current safety and engineering standards. Additionally, courts have found that state agencies have an obligation to apply the requirements of the Michigan Environmental Protection Act to regulatory decisions, including pipeline siting cases. The order before you addresses considerations for applications under Act 16, as well as obligations under the Michigan Environmental Protection Act. First, the order finds that there is a public need for Line 5 products and a public need for the replacement project to protect the resources of the Great Lakes. Second, the order finds that the route, location, and design of the Line 5 replacement segment is reasonable and is a significant improvement over the dual pipeline configuration. It virtually eliminates the risk of anchor strikes, and and the tunnel will serve as secondary containment to prevent product from reaching the straits. Third, the order finds that the replacement segment meets or exceeds current safety and engineering standards. Pursuant to the Michigan Environmental Protection Act, the Commission must make a determination of whether the project would impair the environment, and if so, whether there are reasonable and prudent alternatives to the proposal. While the order finds that the project will cause some impairment of the environment, the order notes that compliance with the permits issued by other agencies and having Enbridge outline its strategies to minimize impairments as part of its final mitigation plans would be sufficient to address most of the concerns. However, because there was a finding of impairment, the Michigan Environmental Protection Act requires the Commission to evaluate other alternatives to the project. The order finds that none of the alternatives evaluated are feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed project, and many would have a greater environmental impact than the tunnel project. The order before you approves the application for construction of the Straits Line 5 replacement project with conditions. Enbridge must receive all governmental approvals, and there may be no significant changes to the route and location of the replacement segment without further application to and approval by the Commission. The order finds that there is insufficient evidence on the record that the pipeline could be safely co-located in the tunnel with third-party utilities, and that no third-party utilities may be co-located in the tunnel without further application to and approval by the Commission. The order requires Enbridge to provide the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority with a detailed risk management plan for the tunnel design. And lastly, the order requires Enbridge to implement additional procedures and testing for girth welds that exceed federal pipeline safety requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-20763.
I second the motion. And before we vote on this order, just a few remarks. It is axiomatic that the Commission speaks through its orders. And the order in this case, at more than 350 pages, includes a comprehensive overview of the evidentiary record and a detailed explanation of the Commission's findings on how that evidence was applied to the legal framework for evaluating Act 16 pipeline cases. As such, I won't review the entire substance of the order or the 6 other Commission orders in this proceeding since it was initially filed in April 2020. I did want to take a moment, however, to review a bit of the context around this case. As we meet here today, Line 5 continues to move crude oil and natural gas liquids through the dual pipelines lying on the bottomlands of the Straits of Mackinac. Over the course of today, approximately 540,000 barrels, or 8.8 million gallons, of crude oil and NGLs will flow through those lines. A leak from those lines would be even worse than Enbridge's 2010 oil spill into Talmadge Creek and the Kalamazoo River, the worst inland oil spill in U.S. history. An oil spill in the Straits would be, in a word, catastrophic. The evidence in this case suggests that the most likely cause of such a spill, or specifically, the dominant threat, representing more than 75% of the annualized total all-threat failure probability, comes from an anchor strike. Nor is such a threat purely theoretical. It happened just 5 years ago when an anchor struck and dented the dual pipelines lying on the bottomlands of the Great Lakes. Fortunately, the pipeline didn't rupture in that case, but there's no guarantee we'd be so lucky the next time. It's clear we need to get those pipelines off the bottomlands and out of the Great Lakes. In reviewing the comprehensive list of alternatives presented in this case on how to do so, we find that Enbridge's proposal to relocate the Straits segment within a concrete line tunnel housed at the bedrock deep below the lake bed represents the best option to mitigate the dangers the current pipelines represent. That is not to say that this pipeline, or any pipeline, represents the only way to transport these products. Indeed, over the last several years, we've seen propane wholesale and retail suppliers and others take significant steps to develop alternate sourcing options for propane and petroleum products, including expanding rail capacity and rail delivery points, new propane terminals, increases in storage capacity at existing terminals, and the deployment of new storage infrastructure, and the return to service of previously mothballed pipelines, to name just a few. These actions demonstrate the continuing need for propane and other products. Yet a determination of public need for the replacement segment at issue in this case is not limited to whether other sourcing options may exist. And at a minimum, relocating the pipeline into a tunnel provides additional options and maintains an additional layer of resilience for how we meet our energy needs in Michigan. And even as these other sourcing options develop, The evidence on the record suggests that, among the broad range of options and alternatives considered, relocating the straight segment of Line 5 to a tunnel beneath the lake bed was the preferred option. At the same time, there is an active energy transition taking place, including the shift from fossil fuels to cleaner energy resources.
Yeah.
The suite of legislation signed into law earlier this week will only help to accelerate that shift. Specifically, the legislation removes the prohibition on fuel switching and energy waste reduction plans, authorizes the development of efficient electrification plans, includes additional incentives for whole home building envelope improvements, and requires the Commission to conduct regular assessments of the potential for electrification of transportation, buildings, and industries, consistent with economy-wide elimination of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. At the same time, the order we just adopted in DTE's electric case includes making permanent some of their transportation electrification programs and improving needed investments to assure grid reliability and boost distribution capacity. These should also help as we electrify transportation and other end uses, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels and the infrastructure currently used to transport them. But this energy transition won't happen overnight. And in the meantime, we have a responsibility to approve the infrastructure needed to meet our energy needs and to take steps necessary to get the current pipelines off the bottomlands. Before closing, I want to thank Mr. Warner and our staff for their active engagement in this proceeding from their very beginning. Thank the two administrative law judges who presided over the course of this case, Judge Christopher Saunders and the late Judge Dennis Mack, who ran an admirable process that resulted in a robust evidentiary record and adhered to high standards of procedural justice. I want to thank the other intervening parties, and particularly the sovereign tribal nations, for the expertise they shared in developing the record in this case, and to the thousands of individuals who submitted comments and spoke at public hearings and commission meetings. I know that some of you are disappointed with our decision. I acknowledge that. But I also want to assure you that your participation improved both the process and the result.
I hear you, Tania.
The perspectives shared helped to crystallize our focus as we continued to dig into the evidentiary record, and the evidence presented by experts from intervening parties ultimately led to a reopening of the record, ensuring we had the information necessary to answer the many questions raised by Enbridge's application. At the end of the day, the evidence supported approval of the relocation project, but with important conditions imposed to reduce any risks. I'll close with this.
They
By
failed
approving
on
the application
63%
to
of their
relocate the
HDD
dual pipelines
crossings.
from the bottomlands of the Straits of Mackinac
How the fuck you think they're
to
going
a
to do it under Lake
concrete-lined
Michigan?
tunnel housed deep in the bedrock below the lake bed, we are an important step closer
This
to
is
finally,
ridiculous.
once and for all, removing the threat the current
You guys are in a
pipeline
fucking
poses
fantasy
to our Great
world.
Lakes. And on that basis, I'm pleased to support this order. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for your comments. They were really excellent. And I would also like to note that, as always, the Commission speaks only through its orders, and these remarks are mine alone. I'd like to start by thanking the many parties that have participated in this case since its filing in 2020. It has been a long road to get to this point. And I would especially like to thank both of the ALJs, like you did, Chair Scripps, who expertly presided over this case.
I hope this one
Judge Christopher
speaks
Saunders
against
and
it.
the late Judge Dennis Mack. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to the tribes
Yep,
who engaged
the
in this
tunnel.
case. Your testimony and input is valued and crucial to our state. And also a sincere
Can we please
thanks.
have order?
And also a sincere thanks to all the public who took the time to comment, email, and show up at our meetings and provide your perspectives. I know that many of you will be disappointed by the decision, but I can genuinely say that your comments, whether in writing, verbally, here in person, or over the phone or Teams, did make this process better. As Mr. Warner noted, we have a robust record of over 2,500 pages and an additional 23,000 comments from members of the public, thanks to many of you.
Yeah, that you fucking
As
ignored.
a result of this robust record, we found the need to reopen the record last year. Because of the importance of this decision, we found that we needed more testimony and evidence on the safety of the proposed replacement project. And as a regulator, ensuring safety is among my highest priorities. And even though this added complexity and time to the proceeding, I'm thankful that we were able to establish more data and build a better understanding of the engineering and design of the replacement project and its route through the tunnel. This additional evidence was necessary to make a fully informed decision. All of their decisions must be made according to the statutes that govern us and based on the record of the case in front of us. And in this case, Act 16, and the Michigan Environmental Protection Act are the governing statutes. So applying these laws, the order proposed before us finds that there is a public need for the replacement project and that it meets or exceeds safety and engineering standards and that it's designed and routed in a reasonable manner. However, given the importance of the Straits of Mackinac to the health and environment and people of Michigan, the proposed order has additional constraints and requirements, including more robust construction and testing practices, submission of a detailed risk management plan, and no presence of any third-party utilities without further application to and approval by the Commission. Protecting the Straits of Mackinac is crucial and was at the forefront of my mind throughout this case. The current dual pipelines laying exposed on the lake bed are not the best option for our state.
Shut the motherfucker
6
down.
alternative
You don't
configurations
need it. The
were
report
assessed on
just
the record,
fucking
and the
came out.
proposed order finds that the most reasonable and prudent of these alternatives is the proposed tunnel. The concrete tunnel provides increased protection from external damage, such as boat anchors, and also provides secondary containment. And this will ultimately maintain the greatest protection of Michigan's
It's going to
natural
destroy your
resources.
fucking water quality before it can even be
Decision was
built.
not taken lightly, and I'm grateful for the sincere, thorough thought and consideration that my colleague Chair Scripps has spent on this decision as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Pertic. We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Carrion?
I abstain. I began my service on the
Oh,
Commission on July
fuck
23rd,
yourself.
2023. The application in
Fuck
this matter
you, you
was filed
coward.
on April 17, 2020, approximately 3.5 years ago. In addition, this is a read-the-record matter with over 1,500 filings in the docket. The Commission received comments from more than 23,000
So I
individuals
couldn't do
and
the
groups
work,
throughout
so
the
I'm
case,
abstaining.
including written comments, comments from public hearings, and comments
Oh, this
made at
is
Commission
telling.
meetings. Having been appointed to the Commission approximately 4 months ago, I have determined to abstain from voting on this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrion. The motion carries by a unanimous vote of 2 commissioners. The order in case number U-20763 is approved.
Only had to
We've
buy
now
2
reached the
this
time
time.
reserved for members of the public to address the Commission. As a reminder, this public comment period is for commissioners to listen to comments and concerns, not to answer specific questions.
Exactly.
When
How are
providing
you going to
comment,
cross
please
under
indicate
Lake?
your name and where you live if you are willing to share, so we have that for our record.
You
Again,
can't
please
cross
limit
Lake
comments to
Michigan
one
if you
per
can't
person
even
and
fucking
keep
cross
them
under a
to
street
no
without
longer than
fucking
3
up.
minutes
Look at
each,
fucking
so that we
trail.
have the chance to hear from as many people as
360th.
possible. We do have a number of comment
That's how long
cards
it's going to take to put this
here in front of us,
motherfucker
and
in.
so
That's
I
why
will
it's
do
so
what we
fucking
typically
stupid.
do, and that is to
The
call
oil industry is going to
the
be
first
dead before
person
they can
and then
even
to
fucking get
let the
started. They're
second
just
person know
fucking
that they're on deck.
delaying having to do
The
anything.
first person today is Carol Sanborn, and Lynn Colby, you're up next. Sanborn.
Obviously, a lot of us know that this needs to happen. Something needs to happen, right? But these projects, we all know they're imagined with good intentions, and we're trying to prevent climate change, and we're trying to build reliability. But we also have to think about how we can't jump all in without considering what we're doing to our neighborhoods and our people.
Yeah, same thing with Line
Residents,
35.
even the environments of the areas where we're putting these in. We can't rush past precautions just to push projects through,
Yep.
just to meet deadlines, just to say,
Yep.
hey, we're all renewable by 2040,
Yep.
right? We can't do that. So this takes away any and all power from the average person, which goes against pretty much everything it means to be one of us, right?
Put it,
So
if you have a
ITC
fucking alternate
ITC
quarter,
Holdings is
fucking
the
use the
company behind
goddamn
this
alternate
transmission line that
quarter.
I'm opposing. And
They don't
honestly,
want to.
I'm
They
not
want a new
opposed to them
quarter because they're
building
going to
a
put even
transmission
more
line.
shit in.
I'm really not.
They already
I have
sold those
objections with
fucking
how they're going
acres,
about it.
probably.
I feel that they'd be better served by upgrading their current infrastructure, which would
Promised to
allow
someone else.
them to utilize their own right-of-ways, as they've already said, instead of taking property from landowners and basically demolishing what we've built our lives on. I'm also not naive enough to realize that ITC is getting tax incentives to build new lines. Why would I pay to maintenance your current lines if the taxpayers can pay to build new lines, right?
Big
I guess
girl.
if my house went bad and I had to
Big
pay to
kitty.
repair it, I'd rather have
Where's your big
somebody else
kitty?
pay for it. So I'm not going to get too far into that, but ITC Holdings showed a net income last year of $442 million, and that doesn't take into account the massive amount of money that Consumers Energy will be making by utilizing these lines to sell renewable energy to other states.
She's funny. She moves
And I'm
so
not
slow.
pointing this out just to say they have too much money. I'm pointing it out to say that they can basically walk all over us. They can squish us legally, and they can take whatever they want. What I'm saying is they also have enough money to do things properly. They don't need to go the absolute
damn.
cheapest route if that's how they're going, just because that's what they asked for.
Yep.
The proper way to handle all of this is talking to all the parties involved. trying to step on the least toes possible and offering people fair value for what they're taking away from them. It doesn't seem like that's the way things are going. My township actually had a meeting about the proposed transmission lines, and most of the people affected didn't even get noticed that the meeting was happening. And it happened in the middle of the day when everybody was at work. So it had a very poor turnout. So I know the goals of the Public Service Commission right now.
We need you to wrap up.
Okay. I'll skip the end of it, but that's fine. I just want you guys to think about pushing this kind of stuff through, and I want you to think about the people it's going to affect. So I know that if this was going through one of your guys' yards, you probably wouldn't push it through.
Thank you, Mr. Walshide. Up next is Julie Wash, and then we have Nicole,
Julie Wash.
Kenray Bieber. Yeah. Sorry.
Good afternoon to the Commission. I am here today to express what is now my disappointment at the second decision today with the case U20763 and Enbridge's application to build a tunnel through the Straits. The most recent Michigan legislative session closed on Tuesday, November 14th. That means that all legislation passed in the session, including the clean energy package, goes into effect in 90 days. That is Monday, February 12th of 2024. In less than 90 days, your commission will have been granted expanded regulatory oversight to weigh factors like, quote, equity, environmental justice, affordability, and public health, unquote, when reviewing energy plans and permits that come before the commission. I'm here to talk about Enbridge's timing. The company known for delay tactics, known for letting the Kalamazoo pipeline leak go for 17 hours.
17
the company
hours.
known for delaying the November 13th, 2020 expiration of its easement for 3 years now. The company known for delay in switching 2 state-based lawsuits to federal court, and the industry known for a 30-year delay in recognizing the effects of climate change is suddenly granted a permit hearing before the MPSC before these new regulations go into effect. And your new expanded oversight is achieved. I'm not buying the timing. And the MPSC needs to know that this citizen will be holding you all and Enbridge accountable for who granted this hearing at this time.
Yep.
If it sounds like I don't trust Enbridge, here's why. They spent $1.2 billion in cleanup costs for Kalamazoo. They spent $2.63 billion in 2014, 4 years after the spill, to double the capacity of the line that caused the spill. And that was approved. So that's at least $3.8 billion that Enbridge has spent since 2010 in energy expenditures in Michigan. I'd like to show you a couple ads from the newspaper that Enbridge takes out to show wind turbines and also solar energy. They have not invested 1 cent in renewable energy in Michigan. Not 1 cent. So I would like to express again my disappointment for the timing, my disappointment in Enbridge's claim to be a bridge to the energy future when they're asking to build a tunnel and not $1 is in renewable energy for the citizens of
Right.
Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wash.
Fuck yeah.
Nicole Bieber, and then Moses Bieber.
It's Biber, thank you. Nicole Kiwe Biber, Indigenous Kaz, Wagnak Snioda, Nishnabik, Mishiki Dodem, Michigan, Japan. So, a few things when you were speaking that stood out to me. This notion of a transition won't happen overnight. You know what can happen overnight? Could happen just a minute from now.
Shut that fucker
Is that
down.
73-year-old pipeline
73
could just rupture? Wouldn't take an anchor strike. But I don't think there was an anchor strike from the Kalamazoo River.
Yep. Yeah.
Very interesting language to say disappointed, outraged, but frankly terrified. So with that spill that could happen overnight at any moment, you just made it that much more likely, because basically they get to keep the oil going while they have their little pet project. We all know it's probably going to be contested by people who are sane and care about our collective future. But in the meantime, they can keep their oil flowing. So they get their way. And their word is somehow deemed sufficient. All those pages and pages of records you mentioned, not to mention talking about government approvals, our tribal governments do not approve this. Our governor and our attorney general do not approve this.
Yes, clap for her. Fuck yes.
You talk about a long road. I have tribal brothers and sisters here, elders, children. I had no idea what you all would do today. It's like, how do we know what to say? We don't know what they're going to decide. But I found something that would work for either direction it went. I have this book here. I have two books with me. This is the Mishomis book. This is Braiding Sweetgrass. They both have a lot of meaning to us because they are part of what has assured that we know who we are. And that's we're in the seventh fire right now. What we've gathered together of our teachings and of our responsibilities is what we're carrying here now. And there's a possibility at this moment of an eighth fire being lit. And what that says is, at this time, the light-skinned race will be given a choice between two worlds. If they choose the right road, then the seventh fire will light the eighth and final fire, an eternal fire of peace, love, brotherhood, and sisterhood. If the light-skinned race makes the wrong choice of roads, then the destruction which they brought with them in coming to this country will come back to them and cause much suffering and death to all Earth's people.
We're already seeing
Today,
they don't comprehend.
Is your choice. You who have been given this choice, and you made the one to give Enbridge their way. To let their oil keep going. No mention of that it's 70 years old when they said 50 years maximum. This engineering is flawed. That's been put before you by experts. No mention of that. It's not safe. Standards somehow allow shortcuts. So all of this is to say, we are here bearing witness, and all the public you've heard from are bearing witness. We have a responsibility right now, and it's so terrifying that you could not see your way to say, Enbridge, you don't get your way. The people do.
It's too tall.
Okay, you want to try standing? He's been coming here for years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just stand, honey.
I'd either be too short or too tall.
I think you're good now. Try that out. There you go. Just speak big.
All right, now I know that this microphone is at the lowest level, but that doesn't make me any less efficient, and that I don't need a piece of paper to simply say that all of us are pleading to not have death. And maybe something unknown by you guys. And like, I think that all these people who agree with this are awesome. Just like she said, like the Mishomis book, she passed that down to me. And I mean, you could choose the death route, but none of us agree with it. Have you seen and ignored? And why make this public commission anyway if it's planned out to disagree with us? Literally planned out for...
Kids calling it.
And I really don't get the people, like, apparently just, like, someone to, like, make angry her feelings, because, like, if that is what supports you, it matters a lot less than choosing the death route.
This kid!
And
shit.
One thing is another. Like, imagine a full circle. It's not even all bedrock, and even if it was, what would the tunnel do? Cover up the oil?
all you have to do is just switch it on to take it out. There's about 5 people running line 5. Enbridge has a lot of people, but only 5 people in line 5. And like I said before, I do not need a piece of paper to plead for having life and not death. And like anybody who's laughing at me for a bad reason has a lesson to learn. Like I said, it'd be a circle too, and like we've already had some small leaks here, and if we had another one, the ice is gonna come. And like it's worse enough now if they're not gonna shut down, but now they're planning to make another one. You see, I'm running out of jokes to make, and right now, I think it's like pretty much not hopeless, but maybe most of these so-called leaders think it should be hopeless. Think that the state itself should be hopeless, and have everybody be deaf. And like in some building, we made like lots of pictures of the catastrophe, and what would they care? It would ruin themselves, and it would ruin all of us and you guys. And I don't get the point of ruining yourself. They just want the money. They don't care. And why give all your will just because they're rich and they want all the money? Like most of the millionaires, billionaires, like so wealthy that 10 generations could have it. 10 generations, and even then they'd have like 1,000 left. And then people became greedy for money because of the trading. So it's pretty much fake. Like trading stuff for other stuff is one thing, and these lines can put an end to it all, even if it were to already be hopeless. Could put an end to it right now. Probably, maybe even it's happening this second.
Oh shit!
And the question
I need you to wrap up. Thank you, Moses.
Who is this?
Pro-Viber. Oh, and sorry, before you start, Lisa Spitz is up next.
I have to say I'm disgusted that grown adults such as yourself could believe such utter BS that Enbridge has been throwing at you and make a decision that holds no competent regard for our future in this state. Something that stood out to me when I heard you talking was the word reasonable. This is not a reasonable solution. It's a phony solution. Basically putting a Band-Aid on the tunnel. Okay. Enbridge does not have a plan when these huge machines go under the water to try and build this tunnel. They do not have a plan if they break. There's nothing like this has ever been attempted before, and it's not going to help if the tunnel were to leak. This is just completely illegal at this point. The governor told them to shut it down. The tribes told them to shut it down, and there's no words
is it
for
our land or not?
how ridiculous it is that a decision like this could be made. Thank you.
100%.
Lisa Spitz and then Andrea Pierce.
Somebody else.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Alyssa Spitz. I'm a lifetime Michigan resident. I also represent the Washtenaw 2030 district. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. You've broken my heart. We are at the most critical time in human history right now. Our house is burning down.
Yes.
We must end the use of fossil fuels as fast as possible. We have less than 10 years to make changes to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Washtenaw 2030 district supports fast transition to clean energy, and the Line 5 investment is contrary to that. Now, this is the part where I was very hopeful when I came here, but now I'm just going to say this to put it on the record. It's hard to see it as we're living it, but there's tremendous evidence that we are at the beginning of the very painful transition from the Anthropocene to the Symbiocene. The Anthropocene being the geological age when humans have affected the planet. the symbiosis meaning mutually beneficial relationship. I'm still hopeful that we will find our way into the symbiocene. I see a lot of evidence worldwide that we are getting there. But the fact that you would make this decision to lock us into this fossil fuel, I'm just crushed. One other thing about that, the symbiocene, one other hopeful thing, humans have only been in our current extractive mode for 400 years, which is a fraction of our time on Earth. So there is hope that we will get our priorities correct and learn to be in a relationship with the rest of the natural world. The rest of this is all about how Enbridge didn't do anything adequate to address the issues, so there's no point in saying this now. I'm sorry that you were not able to put the public service
yes,
ahead of the choice that you've made.
Yep.
And I do think that we are still going to find our way to the right path, I hope.
Nice.
Thank you, Ms. Fitt.
Andrea Pierce, and then Bob Hamilton.
Hello there. I'm Andrea Pierce, Wasnadekwe Indigenous, Wakanaka Singodawa Nadojaba, Mapua Nadodam. I am tribal. I am from Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. I have to tell you, I am completely disgusted by your vote. Totally and completely. I am disgusted that these children have to sit here and feel hopeless. Hopeless. Do you know what it's like to be their ages and feel hopeless in our government? Seriously, you're supposed to protect the Great Lakes, protect us. These pipelines and tunnels are going to go through my tribal lands, through my people's lands, through my community. And I think that's just reprehensible. I think what you've done here is just negligence, complete and utter negligence. And when this pipeline breaks and this tunnel breaks, 70-year-old pipeline, how long do you think it's going to last? Seriously, how long? 70 years old, supposed to last 50. Shouldn't have been in the Straits of Mackinac at all. We do not need this product. We use less than, 5 to 10%. We can find other ways around it. We're distancing away from fossil fuels. We can't live on fossil fuels. We do not need this stranded asset from when we get off of fossil fuels and move on to something else. You've ignored tribal governments, tribal citizens. I don't know how many times I've been up here. 23,000 comments you ignored. You're right up there with Nestle.
Nestle.
And I want you to know you have literally and completely ruined Christmas for so many people in this state of Michigan. And this decision you've made, and I'm pointing at all three of you, I know you abstained, but you're going to be I'm sure we're going to be appealing this. You're going to have to make a decision sooner or later. And I want you to know this will be on your heads for the rest of your lives. And I really mean it. I am disgusted with you people. I am chair of the Anishinaabe Caucus. I am a tribal citizen, and I work with MEJC, Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition. And I'm going to be watching you. You have disgusted me, and I'm not going to be nice to you anymore.
Yes!
I'm going to be watching you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Bob Hamilton, and then Lauren Sargent.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Robert Hamilton. I live in Holland, Michigan.
That's the only way.
Hamiltons have lived in Michigan. I'm fourth generation here, not as old as some of our other generations who go back countless years. Your decision today to support this boondoggle is very disappointing, and it is a boondoggle. All it is a sleight of hand distraction so that Enbridge can continue to pump their petroleum under the Straits of Mackinac through the existing inadequate and unsafe infrastructure. This cement tunnel is never going to be built. It's not going to be built. They're just using it as great promises. Well, this is the fourth great promise. We're going to build a tunnel. That's what they're doing to us. They're just going to keep pumping until it breaks, like it did in the Kalamazoo River, like it has done in so many other sites, Saginaw Valley, other places. They have a terrible, terrible safety record. And your decision is allowing them to continue with their inadequate safety precautions. And one of the biggest jokes, I think, is this is going to be obsolete in, by my calculations, which aren't scientific, 15 to 17 years.
Nope.
They're going to put all this money into a technology that's going to be obsolete. No, they're not. They're just going to rely on process and procedure. Oh, we can't start yet. We can't start yet. And they know that. And they're just going to keep doing what they've been doing, to the jeopardy and risk of everybody in this room, the folks that earn their livings up there, that fish up there, get their water from there, whose ancestors have lived up there for generations. It's a boondoggle, it's a distraction, and I'm disappointed that you supported it.
I'm gonna put my hand up.
Mr. Hamilton.
There's a bunch of people in the room that probably
We have
know the
Lauren
pictures.
Sargent, and then
Good afternoon. My
Nova.
name is Dr. Lauren Sargent. I'm with Washtenaw 350, and I am really disappointed, utterly disgusted, more like. You all ought to be hanging your heads in shame, and you should stop calling yourselves the Michigan Public Service Commission, because there was no public service apparent here this afternoon. So we already know, as the gentleman who just went before me already stole my thunder, we know what Enbridge is going to do. They're going to do what they've been doing, which is lying, obfuscating, wringing every penny out of their pipeline until it is no longer profitable, and they will leave us with the stranded asset. If we are incredibly lucky, that will happen before that pipeline ruptures. But I'm afraid that is not extremely likely at all. As you yourselves mentioned, it's out of date and very vulnerable. Yeah. You also know that we need to eliminate our dependence on fossil fuels. Why, in God's name, would we contemplate any new infrastructure for fossil fuels, let alone under our Great Lakes and all through our whole state? We're nothing but a shortcut, and you're going to turn our lakes into an open sewer. Yep. You also know that there's a risk of earthquake if they do actually start to try to tunnel, because you have been provided with information that there's a fault line under there that has not been investigated. You also know that there are indigenous burial grounds and memorials that are yet to be fully identified, and they are very much deserving of protection. You know this because we told you so. And we found it and told you. And that's been completely ignored. And then to say, oh, thank you so much for a tribal participation. Bullshit. You completely ignored it. And you know it. So this is a shameful, short-sighted, and petty decision. Please, at least, remove public service from your title and letterhead and from the outside of this building, because it is misleading.
Thank you, Ms. Sargent. Next, we have Nova, and then Julie Stakecki.
My name's Nova. I'm from the Lake Michigan Lakeshore area, where the Lake Michigan hits the Grand River. The Grand River's gone through enough. Thanks, Enbridge, you've screwed us over again. December 6th of 2016 is the first time I even heard of Line 5, and now all I can do is pray that we can check your bank statements and find out who paid you to just destroy what we've been putting and working so hard to stand against. 6 years later, 23,000 signatures, and you can't get the hint that we do not want Line 5. And Enbridge, especially with Mr.
he's sitting over doodling on his paper over here, ignoring what the people are saying. It's a danger to the water, the residents of the state, and the eventual stranded asset. You have now sentenced the realities of Enbridge's past failures and irresponsible actions and policies to be our legacy, and you're responsible for it. And not only that, but you've sentenced Enbridge's employees to death in that bedrock, because there have been 2 other tunnels with this technology drilled, and it has ended up in loss of life because the equipment breaks down, and now we can't even tunnel to get their bodies back. You've sentenced people to death. You have sentenced the lakes to death. You have not looked at the facts that last anchor strike that you like to talk about happened from an Enbridge-owned sub-tractor vehicle. You have not been diligent in vetting this company and its attacks on our states already, and we keep bearing the scars and the brunt of their past performance. You talk about the specs and design and construction of a pipeline and why it's a good alternative to Line 5, but the tunnel construction allows for construction of man camps in their wake. They are illegally running oil. They are trespassing. They have been evicted, and you're going to have to live with your parts in human trafficking and the sex trade that's going to come along. And we know Canada's history and the oil companies' roles in the trafficking of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in a tunnel that can be transported, and the publicized archaic fossil fuels, but also undocumented commodities such as humans in various states of health or unaliveness. And you have damned and doomed many generations to come. So I came here in opposition to this permit. Interesting how you went ahead and voted, even though there's 23,000 other voices, and mine today, and all these people today, and all our voices, but you didn't hear us.
Yep.
Huh. Wonder why. Check those pocketbooks. I'm standing in opposition to a tunnel permit, and I'll keep standing against it if I have to lay my fucking life down to it, because you don't care about anybody else's but your own, but I care about other people. I care about the state. I care about the water, and I care about my Indigenous brothers and sisters and their lives and the lack of security that you just gave us. So I hope you sleep well at what you sentenced us to.
Woo! Fuck yes.
We have time for 2 more comments. So Julie Siskecki and Jade Prang, the last word today.
Thank you. Thank you. Mine will be quick. Julie Stahesky Johanningsmeyer. I have property both in the Upper Peninsula, Trout Lake, as well as Lower Michigan in Howell, Michigan. I, too, am horribly disappointed in the permit approval process and feel that Michigan is inheriting all the risk with no benefit. And this is going strictly to a for-profit corporation. However, my comment that I actually want to go back to is regarding the DTE decision, which I do approve. As understood, the number one reason for power outages is the conflict between trees and utility lines. So I do support the rate increases as long as the funding that goes to that tree trimming funding surge, it's not simply to prune more miles, but that we are adamant about using best management practices to navigate the natural resource challenges that we have out there, and in particular, avoiding the spreading of the lethal disease oak wilt. Further, this tree trimming funding surge must provide living wages for the utility arborists who work in the heat, humidity, amongst insects, poisonous plants, as well as freezing conditions, often under emergency conditions. It is this workforce that keeps the power flowing, and I hope your oversight is very close to make sure that some of that funding goes to the boots on the ground upon which this entire grid rests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jade Prang.
Hi there, my name is Jade. I'm from Kingsley, but I live in Lansing now to attend MSU. The first time I spoke out about the Line 5 tunnel was in 2019 when the Grand Traverse County Commission passed a resolution in support of the tunnel despite overwhelming opposition. It was this action that mobilized me to run for office and attempt to take my commissioner's seat. I wanted to reverse this decision and help create an actionable plan for my county to adapt to climate change. I did not win, but I learned how to organize and build coalitions as a direct result of the Grand Traverse Line 5 tunnel resolution. I switched my major to public policy, and this spring I will graduate and hopefully get admitted to a master's program for urban and regional planning. Everything in my studies so far has reinforced what I knew to be true. The climate is changing. We need to switch to sustainable energy quickly, and our Great Lakes are the most important natural resource that we as Michiganders and Americans must protect. The first time I spoke out against Line 5, my voice shook and I was afraid. I did not understand the love and support of the environmental community or how it would embrace and sustain me. I learned quickly that opposing pipelines and protecting the water would come as easily as breathing. It will soon be 2024, and the 5-year anniversary of my first time speaking out is rapidly approaching. I was 20 back then, and I will soon be 25. This means that I have spent 1/5 of my life fighting this tunnel, and I will gladly spend the rest of my life if I must. This pipeline needs to be shut down, and this tunnel should never be built. By permitting this tunnel to go forward, you are endangering the Great Lakes and the future of Michigan residents. Our water is precious and sacred, and when we say water is life, we mean it. You are endangering our lives with this decision. I am so disappointed in you, and I am so proud of everyone else in this room who has come to share their voices in opposition of the tunnel. We will fight to protect the water, the land, the air, and all of our relations. The opposition to Line 5 is too strong. You can put your agenda out late to try and prevent us from coming, but we will not stop. I will not stop. This is my future. This is my land, my water, my relatives. I should trust you to protect them, but I do not, and you have failed me today. You have failed the Indigenous community. You have failed the next 7 generations to come. And the next time that Line 5 leaks, because there will be a next time, I hope that each and every one of you hold yourself personally accountable, because I will.
It is not 2:30, and I put in a call to make a comment, so I'd like to use the remaining time to do that. It is not 2:30. It's 2:28.
We're well past the stated end time.
You said 2:30. It is 2:28. So I'd like to have at least 2 minutes. I respectfully ask for what you agreed to. So what I want to say, my name is Terry Wilkerson. I'm from Pinckney, Michigan. And the use of Line 5 in any form fails to meet Michigan's public need in every form. The state of Michigan uses a small fraction of what flows through Line 5, and even so, there are alternatives which are feasible for the product it transports. There are not alternatives for the water, which is why Water is Life is our rallying call. The Great Lakes, provide drinking water for over 40 million people and 35 million species. As documented by Dr. Schwab from U of M, a large spill threatens 720 miles of coastline. But what's not highlighted is that the smallest spill ruins Mackinac Island and immediately devastates 3 counties and destroys our pure Michigan image, which is our call for tourism and hurts our economy. We don't know what the long-term negative impacts of the largest source of fresh water in the U.S. would be, but why take any risk that we don't need to for a foreign corporation's profit? We don't have to take the risk, and yet we're doing that. Hopefully you all know that the Great Lakes contains 95% of the fresh water in the U.S. Do you realize that if you made the continental U.S. a swimming pool and dumped the Great Lakes into it, that would be over 9 feet tall throughout the entire country? That's the volume of water that is ultimately needlessly at risk. As you, Chair, said, a spill would be catastrophic, which is why we need Line 5 out of the straits immediately in any form. No delays with tunnel permits, whatever. We need to shut it down immediately, and you have the power to help us do that. I thank you that you abstained from voting, because there is a lot to absorb, and this isn't over. So I hope you start reading and really doing the deep research needed to make a decision which supports the public that you're entrusted to. And I also wanted to say that Enbridge is already responsible for the 2 largest oil spills in the U.S. They repeatedly demonstrate irresponsibility, like right now, while they're ignoring a shutdown order and continuing to operate illegally. And they knew about the tear in the Kalamazoo line, and yet they continue to operate that until it burst. And this is the company that we're going to entrust with a tunnel that has no tunnel like this has ever been built, and we're mixing oil and electricity. I mean, really think about that. You don't need a science degree for that. That's just, it's just a dumb idea. I am terrified that a company that has been blatantly ignoring good practices and the law is going to be entrusted with a project that's never been done before, and it does not meet or exceed safety standards if you continue to do your research, which I beg you to do. You mentioned that protecting the Great Lakes is crucial, and please re-examine your decision so that when we see you again, you'll have thought about it beyond the corporation and the product and thinking about the water that is at risk. Thank you.
Woo! Good close. Good close.
That concludes the public comment portion of today's meeting. And that concludes today's meeting. The next regular commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 21st, 2023 at 1 o'clock p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn, Commissioner Parrott?
Move to adjourn today's commission meeting.
We'll now have a vote on the motion to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Run, everybody.
Run.
Shame on all of you. You weren't even on you. Shame on you. You weren't even listening.
You weren't even listening.
I just want to talk to that guy from Enbridge.